Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive. And I'm super excited about today's show because I'm going to dive deep. You want to go deep with me? Let's go deep. Let's talk about intimacy. All right, so before I get there, I want to just say I'm now on TikTok and I've been on Instagram, but I never tell you about it. So in both places, I'm Tricia Nelson _. So if you want to hear what I have to say elsewhere, go to Instagram, go to TikTok, certainly YouTube. Yeah, I'm around. I get around. What can I say? Also, if you're here at the Heal Your Hunger Show for the first time, welcome. So glad you're here. Oh my goodness, you're in for a treat because guess what? We don't talk about diets. We don't talk about, all the endless ways that you can lose weight. Why? Because 98% of all diets fail. Listen to that. 98% of all diets fail, which means it's a useless conversation. Okay, so even though it's sexy, even though it makes you think you're getting somewhere, you're really going to get somewhere when you deal with the underlying causes, when you deal with the living problem. Because my experience is it's a living problem, not an eating problem. I was 50 pounds overweight because I didn't know how to live. I was messing up my relationships. I had a fear of intimacy. I had all kinds of fears, and they were wrecking my life. And I was eating over the stress of being me. So if you're here for the first time, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the stress of being us and how to make changes in our lives so we can be happier and not need to cover up our pain with food. It's a deeper conversation, and I owe it to you. I owe you the truth, not to take you down the garden path of diets, as ego satisfying as it is. Okay, so that's where we go. If you want to go there with me, please stay tuned. And please share this show with other girlfriends who might need this vital information. And lastly, join us in the Secret Sauce group because that's a group on Facebook that's private. And we do a lot of our recording there, a lot of announcements, and just cool little inspirational messages that can help you keep going throughout your week. When you're just feeling a little low or you're feeling like eating the house, okay? So join us, go to Facebook and type in the secret sauce to end emotional eating. We'd love to have you. And also if emotional eating is a new term for you or you're like, I want to hear what she has to say, but I don't think I'm an emotional eater, find out by taking the quiz. Just go to healyourhunger.com and you'll get a personalized score. So you'll know if you're an emotional eater or a food addict or somewhere in between or not at all, okay? So healyourhunger.com is where that free quiz is. It takes like 3 minutes, but you'll get a personalized score. Okay, on with the show. So I spoke the other day to my clients. We were on a group call and I talked about some of my own personal shenanigans that I've pulled in the past in relationships. You know, some of you who listen often know that I have a fairly new guy in my life, although we're going on 2 years now. In a couple of weeks, we'll be at 2 years. Yay, that's so exciting. You know, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's not really a new relationship anymore. But I've weathered not any storms, but I'd say I've weathered the temptation. I've pushed through the temptation to screw things up. Okay, so as emotional eaters, we tend to put a cog in the wheel. We tend to make problems where there are no problems. And a lot of this comes down to fear of intimacy. So I've been aware of this in myself because it's certainly been a problem for me in the past. And I want to draw your attention to the telltale signs of that fear and how that fear manifests in your relationships. So important. This is vital information because you could be screwing things up and thinking it's all his fault. No, we've never done that, have we? So I want to start by talking about how we get this fear of intimacy. Where does it come from? Well, my experience, it goes way back. It goes way back to our childhood. I mean, most things do. And my experience is personally, I had sexual abuse in my past and I had a family that wasn't particularly close or intimate. There was a lot of love, so I'm very grateful for that, but there was a lot of distance as well. We were all kind of in our own private hell. Okay, we were all we had addictive habits. All of us, my sisters and I, all three of us had food addiction, but we had other stuff going on, and so we were all kind of like relief-seeking missiles. We were hiding from our feelings in different addictive habits, process addictions like worry and reading and working and things like that. So the bottom line is we weren't very intimate. We didn't have a lot of closeness as a family, and I was hungry as a result. So that's the real hunger. The hunger for most emotional eaters is for connection, for a deeper sense of connection. And most of us didn't have it growing up. And on top of that, if we had sexual abuse or some other kind of abuse, we were wounded. We were wounded, and we had some deep-lying beliefs about ourselves on account of those experiences. I certainly did. I had sexual abuse from about age 5 to 10, and with a relative, and from that, I drew conclusions about my worth. I thought I was worthless. I certainly thought I was bad, unlovable, and a pervert. Because I was overly sexual as a young kid. I masturbated compulsively after being turned on at age 5. At an inappropriate age, I discovered sex and sexuality, and I didn't have actual sex at that age, thank God. But I was turned on. I was turned on. The wheels were turning, and I discovered masturbation, and that felt good. So I overdid it. That was one of my first addictions. And so I thought I was a terrible person on account of that. Plus the secrecy of abuse adds a whole nother layer of messed upness. So, okay, look it up in the dictionary, messed upness. I know it's in there. But the point is, when we have secrets, we get sick. There's a saying, we're as sick as our secrets. I was very sick. I had this secret about what I was doing with this person, and I felt so much shame about it. I was sure if my parents ever knew about it, they would hate me or think I was disgusting. And I so revered my parents. I wanted them to love me. So I was living with this shame and this secretiveness, and it only compounded my sense of worthlessness. So there's that, okay? And I'm guessing that you are picking up what I'm laying down. I'm guessing that you know these feelings, because so many emotional eaters have had sexual abuse. So many of us have had dark secrets that we were holding very close to us, and we were burying with food. We were using food to keep those secrets intact, all right? Not to let anybody know the truth about us, which we didn't even know the truth about us. We were making things up, making up that we were bad. So that's a big cause of fear of intimacy. And what happens when we have abuse as a kid, and even it doesn't have to be sexual abuse, but any kind, we have, really a very shaky sense of worth, if not self-hatred. And I had a ton of self-hatred. I thought I was stupid, I thought I was ugly, and I thought I was bad. And so I felt these things about myself, and when you go through life with these deep-lying, untrue beliefs, none of these things were true, but I believed them, and there's a saying, I think it was by somebody named Jesus, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So if I believe these things about myself, it's as if that was true. I was operating in the world as if it were true, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the fear of intimacy stems from, these beliefs that we have about ourselves, these beliefs that we're not worthy, these beliefs that we don't deserve good treatment. If you had abuse as a kid, you seek... Water seeks its own level. You believe that's what you're worthy of, and you grow up seeking that same level of treatment, and might not have been the exact same kind of treatment, but, we certainly, when we don't feel worthy, when we feel like we're bad, or unlovable, we seek out people where there's not a lot of love going on. Often, not always, often. But these beliefs are definitely playing a role in our lives. So the other thing is we often attract people who aren't safe, just like we weren't safe as kids. So, my experience is that causes problems in relationships if we don't feel safe. Now, we either don't feel safe because we're carrying that belief that we're not safe, or that belief has caused us to attract somebody who's not safe. So that's something to be aware of. I'm not sure what it is for you. It could be you have an amazing partner, but you're putting up walls because you're afraid of not being safe. That's usually the case. I have so many clients who have really very understanding and very loving and patient partners. Great people, great men, primarily men, but it's, amazing partners who are so patient and so loving and put up with a lot. Being with us is not easy. Being with, we can talk all day about how maybe our partners aren't all that, but we forget to look at how we haven't been all that. So I'll get into that. That's something to talk about. But the point is that a lot of times we are causing the rift. We're causing the blocks to intimacy because of our history, because of, our woundedness. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about the 12 telltale signs that you have a fear of intimacy and or symptoms of the fear of intimacy. These are sort of signs and symptoms wrapped up in one. So the first one is self-sabotage. And this is something I was talking the other day with my clients about. When I got into this relationship with my guy that I'm with now, it kind of blew my mind because he was so great. He was so great. And we were so perfectly matched. I totally believe God had a hand in our finding each other. I mean, seriously, it's uncanny. I mean, there's no dating app that could possibly have the right boxes to match us up. It had to be God. I 100% believe it. So the self-sabotage comes in when or the temptation for self-sabotage. I have thankfully been very careful and watchful for this because I've had this in the past where I've sabotaged relationships and even just girlfriend relationships, not even, romantic relationships, but I've sabotaged relationships when it felt too close. Do you relate to that? Do you relate to feeling so good that you just want it to stop and you screw it up? So I was watching for this because I've done that so many times in the past, and this relationship was so good that I had feelings I was not comfortable with. And emotional eating basically comes from eating when we feel uncomfortable, any kind of uncomfortable, including good feelings. And so I was feeling so many good feelings that I almost felt like I couldn't take it. I couldn't take how good I felt. And as a result, I wanted to screw it up. And I came very close. So I'm going to be talking about different ways that we self-sabotage, different things that we do for the effect of self-sabotage, or at least just to kill the good feelings. And so good feelings are hard to feel, just like bad feelings. When I had no frame of reference for feeling as good as I was feeling so loved, feeling so sexual, turned on and excited, I mean, that's, it's been a journey for me to even feel those feelings. When you have sexual abuse, you're just like, to feel sexual is to feel danger, or to feel like you're about to be unsafe. So I've had to work through that over the years. So the self-sabotage was a temptation for me, and we do that by all kinds of things. I'm going to be talking about the different ways we do that, but one of them is just picking a fight. Just picking a fight, making a big deal out of something that's not a big deal. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I think all women know what I'm talking about, whether you're abused or not. It's so tempting. So I had to watch for that. And when I felt overwhelmed by feeling so good, what I did is I wrote about it. I wrote down not only the enormous feelings I was having, but I wrote down what was happening in my head and what those thoughts were. And when I would write them down, they were very self-hating thoughts. Like, I don't deserve this. I'm no good. This is too good to be true. He's going to leave me. I might as well end it now. Like, all these crazy, crazy negative sabotaging thoughts. I wrote them down because when you keep them in your head, they have power over you. You put them on paper, they lose their power. And my shorthand for the healing journey is write about it, talk about it, pray about it. So I'd write about it, I'd talk about it, I'd literally talk about it with my partner. Like, I'm having a hard time with this. Like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't feel worthy of this. Like, you're amazing, and I don't know what you're doing with me. So lots of like low self-esteem thoughts and feelings. So I would talk about it and I would pray about it. And that is the best formula when you feel tempted to screw up your relationship, any relationship. It could be a work relationship. You could feel unworthy of your, position. Like, oh, I'm a fraud. They're going to find out about me, right? Write that stuff down. Get it out of your head and onto paper so you can look at it and see how noisy your head is and what BS it is. When it's in your head, it has power and it seems true. When it's on paper, you can see the falsity, So self-sabotage is the first telltale sign and symptom. The second is the projection of unworthiness. So oftentimes we think someone thinks. And my mentor used to say, you can't think for somebody else. So oftentimes what we do is we project our low self-esteem onto our partner. We think they must think we're no good. They must be thinking this. They must be thinking that. But you can't think for someone else. So who's thinking that? Who's thinking I'm no good? I am. So I need to own it, right? If you're thinking he's thinking, stop thinking for him, because he's not thinking that. But what we're doing is we're projecting our worthlessness on someone else. When we don't feel worthy of the love, we're thinking somebody else is thinking we're not worthy. And then that's an easy way to pick a fight, right? Like, oh, you think I'm this, that, and the other. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? Have you ever had your partner just look at you like you fell out of the sky or something? Like, what planet are you from? Because we have all these thoughts about ourselves, and then we see through that lens. We see other people through that lens, and we assume that's how they see us. But it's not true. 9 times out of 10, it's not true. You're projecting your sense of worthlessness onto somebody else, and it's not fair. So often when we don't feel like we're worthy and we don't value ourselves, we just assume other people don't value us. We assume other people don't want to be with us. So we project that stuff. And they value us. They value us so much more than we value ourselves. But we're getting in the way. We're obstructing the love by projecting those feelings on someone and thinking we're not valued. It's so easy to do this, and it's so destructive. The third thing is being passive aggressive. Ooh, this happens way too often, and it is such a problem. Game playing, being coy, being indirect, passive aggressive, not saying how you really feel, and then slamming doors or being coy, like kind of beating around the bush when you want something. It's just, it's so destructive to a relationship, and it happens so often with emotional eaters because we're people pleasers and we're so afraid to own who we are. We're so afraid to just come out with it. And so we end up not saying something, and then we get pissed off when things don't go our way, and then we do this passive-aggressive behavior, like withholding love, not being interested in sex, slamming doors, forgetting to pick up an important item at the store. It's like all these little behaviors start creeping into the relationship to irritate the other person when we're just not owning what we need to say. We're just not being honest. Stop it. That's my advice for you. Stop it. Take a look at it. See how unfair it is and how intolerable it is to live with you when you're that way. I mean, if you are living with a passive-aggressive person, because you may have a spouse doing the exact same thing. Possibly because you started it. And then they get pissed off, and then they're coming out with their passive-aggressive behavior. So take a good look at that. You stop playing games. Be direct and honest. Be vulnerable. Really, be vulnerable. So much of that behavior comes from just being afraid to lay down our guard and be vulnerable. The fourth thing is not communicating our needs, and this comes, this is a root cause of passive-aggressive behavior. So as emotional eaters who don't feel good about ourselves, we often don't directly communicate our needs, and we don't even feel worthy of having needs. And so we sublimate them. We sublimate them, and then we get resentful. And then this whole pattern of passive aggressiveness ensues. So I am here to say, own your needs, okay? Communicate clearly. We have to communicate our needs. My mentor used to say, if you're expecting me to read your mind, I can't. And why don't you just write out a script for me and I'll follow it. Write out a script and I'll follow it. We deserve to have needs, and our partners are happy to accommodate our needs. But if we beat around the bush, if we don't say what our needs are, if we expect the other person to be a mind reader, it's going to be really hard for them to help us or to fulfill our needs. So this is on us. We've got to communicate clearly. Clear communication is so vital in a relationship. Just come out with it. Come out with it. You can preface it by saying, this is hard for me to say, or this is hard for me to admit, or this is hard for me to ask for. Say it that way. Just preface it with that, just to warm yourself up and let the other person know it is hard for you. But that gets the conversation going. In my program, I share and teach with my clients how to communicate our needs, how to be effective at communication, because it does not come naturally for us. And this is something my clients are practicing and getting better at day by day, because it's vital for overcoming emotional eating. If you don't learn how to communicate your needs, you're going to be miserable. And if you're miserable, you're going to eat. And then you're going to blame the other person, right, for your unhappiness. So learn how to communicate, learn how to speak up, say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. So important. Okay, number 5, resentment. Because when we don't communicate our needs, we get resentful, and then we're passive aggressive and we're slamming doors, right? So resentment ensues when we don't own our needs, when we're not clear in our communication, when we are not saying what we need to say, and when we have expectations of people that are unreasonable, or if we have expectations, period, and we don't know how to let them go. Expectations are resentments under construction. So this resentment is a big problem because it causes overeating. We eat when we feel resentful. We eat when we feel like we aren't understood, or we aren't cared for, or you name it. It fuels our eating. Resentment is such a common thing for emotional eaters, and it's so contrary to what we think about ourselves. We see ourselves as so friendly and outgoing and fun and affable, but underneath is us, like a river of resentment, because we've stifled our voice for so long. Okay, so you got to start speaking up, and you got to start being clear, and you have to watch your expectations of other people, expecting them to be how you want them to be. At least give them a script so they can try. Okay, number 6 is believing that the grass is greener. Ooh, big problem for emotional eaters. When we're not satisfied with ourselves, we're not satisfied with other people. All right. So when we're not satisfied with other people, we start looking around like, oh, Sally's husband does this, that, and the other, or Joey's husband, makes this kind of money. Like, what's wrong with my husband? right? So we start nitpicking, we start being critical, we start thinking that the grass is greener, and this leads to a sense of a continual dissatisfaction and unhappiness in your relationship, and your partner's going to feel it. If you're constantly thinking he doesn't measure up, that he's not as good as your neighbor's husband, energetically, he's going to feel it, and it's going to dampen his spirit. It's going to dampen his self-esteem, right? And his sense of worth. Men want to be respected. Men want to be honored and respected. And, if it's a good guy, he deserves it. He deserves your respect. But when you're thinking he doesn't measure up, when you're projecting your own sense of self-dissatisfaction onto the other person, it's not fair, and it's destructive to the relationship, certainly to intimacy. Okay, number 7. When you're thinking the grass is greener all the time, guess what? Oftentimes you jump over into the other lawn. So that's infidelity. This will kill intimacy really fast. All right. So and it's often a symptom of lack of intimacy too. If you've had a fear of intimacy for a long time and there is no sexual intimacy in the relationship, you might start looking around somewhere else for it, or he might start looking around somewhere else for it. But regardless, infidelity will kill intimacy like water to a flame. Okay, so, but it does come from being dissatisfied. It does come from feeling like you need a hit. You need life to be more interesting, and that comes from your thinking, thinking that the grass is greener somewhere else. Number 8, another symptom of fear of intimacy is jealousy. You may have a spouse who just thinks you're the cat's meow. Absolutely the cat's meow. He loves you no matter what size you are, no matter how you look. But if you are a jealous type, and I have been a jealous type, so I can speak from personal experience, it's a buzzkill. It's a total buzzkill when you're constantly like watching him like a hawk, or getting paranoid and thinking he's cheating on you, or being jealous when he looks at another woman, and you're hounding him to stop doing that. You're beating him up because he's just looking. Beauty is worth seeing. I love beauty. I love beautiful men that are attractive, and I love beautiful women. Okay? I love beauty. And so I have always, done my best to give my partner permission to look. Go ahead and look. I'll look with you. Like, I'll comment. Wow, she's gorgeous. Did you see that ass? Amazing. So, jealousy, it's just, it really just puts a pall over everything. And what it does, it actually breeds infidelity. It breeds like a sense of like feeling stifled, which can lead to looking elsewhere. So watch that, and this comes again from projecting our own unworthiness onto the other person, like thinking that your spouse is somehow wanting someone else. Now, it could be that he does, all right? I get it. But oftentimes, I've talked to many clients who just feel, because they're feeling bad about their weight, they're feeling bad about how they look, they just assume their spouse, they'll tell me, I know he loves me to pieces, but I wish he wouldn't look at other people. And I just say, let him look with them. It's no indication of your worth. And this is the problem, again, of projecting our sense of worth on someone else. Just because he's admiring beauty doesn't mean he loves you any less. Okay, so watch the jealousy, watch the paranoia, watch the thinking he's always thinking he's cheating on you, because that gets tired very fast. It can wear somebody down when you're constantly paranoid and trying to control his eyes, his actions, and be paranoid. All right. So, and I will say that, I also, I want to tell you to honor your feelings. If you have a gut feeling about something, if you feel like something's not right, certainly listen to your intuition, because that's a thing, right? Women have great intuition. So I'm not saying to ignore your intuition. I hope you're getting what I'm talking about here. It's that insecurity. It's that perpetual insecurity that we have when we haven't come to a better sense of ourselves. If we're still in the food, if we're still feeling bad about our bodies, that insecurity can definitely come in between us and another person in these different ways that I'm describing. Okay, number 9, hypercritical. Being hypercritical of our spouses. And where does this come from? I call it the spillover effect. Other people are going to get the spillover of what you're doing to yourself. So when you're hypercritical, when you're nitpicking yourself, when you're never satisfied with who you are, how you look, the job you do, how you come across, what your voice sounds like, when you're constantly finding fault with yourself, guess what? People around you are going to get it too. As much as you try to be nice, they're going to feel it. You're going to be critical of them as well. Other people are getting the spillover of what we're doing to ourselves, and that'll kill intimacy. And it's a symptom of fear of intimacy because it'll cause a rift. Number 10 is taking things personally and being defensive. Defensiveness is one of the ugliest traits ever, and I'm just gonna say it just kills the mood so fast. Thinking they're always talking about you, thinking they're directing things at you, being defensive, instead of just being relaxed and having a better sense of yourself. When we feel insecure, when we think we're not enough, we always think somebody's saying we're not enough. We're reading into it, again, projecting our worthlessness on other people. So watch the defensiveness. It's so tiring to live with. So tiring. It's not about you. It's not all about you. So watch that. Number 11, reject the other person before you are rejected. Ever done that? I know I have. All right, thinking we're not loved and then just saying, screw it, I'm going to reject them. I'm going to just call it right now before they're able to reject me. That fear of rejection can get so great, and it comes from not feeling worthy. So I've done this, where I don't want to be in the relationship anymore because I'm sure that I'm going to be rejected because I'm projecting my unworthiness. And the self-sabotage obviously leads to that. We can self-sabotage and then kill the relationship, and boom, we've done the rejecting, so we don't have to experience rejection. It's so destructive to a relationship. So, again, write about it. Write about these things. Talk about them. Talk them through. Tell your partner your insecurities. Talk it through. Don't hound your partner to make you feel less insecure. It's not their job. So often we want them to make us feel secure. And of course, you should have somebody who makes you feel secure. But don't overlook that when they do it and keep insisting that they do more to make you feel secure. Own your feelings of insecurity. Stop trying to get them to make you feel a certain way. That's your job to bring about. All right, it's an inside job. Feeling good about ourselves is an inside job. Nobody else should have the job of making us feel secure. It is an inside job. It comes from deeper work. It comes from affirmations. It comes from clearing out everything you feel guilty about, getting it out there, having God heal you. And it comes from your relationship with God, coming to know your worth. I was told many years ago, that I'm God's favorite baby daughter. And that stuck to me. I loved it when I heard it. And I thought, okay. And I started living like I'm God's favorite baby daughter. And I didn't believe it, but I lived it. I kept thinking, what would God's favorite daughter be able to do? And over time, throughout the years, I came to believe it. And I have a self-confidence and a sense of myself that I didn't used to have. And it's beautiful and wonderful. And it enables me to be very relaxed in my current relationship that I'm in. I'm super relaxed. I'm super easygoing. I don't control. I don't try to manage for the most part. I'm not perfect. But the point is, the stronger I feel about myself, the less I need to control, the less I need him to be a certain way so that I feel a certain way. You get that? Okay, good. So the 12th thing, the 12th of the telltale signs, the 12th symptom of fear of intimacy, and the 12th sign that I have a fear of intimacy is controlling. Just mentioned it. Being controlling, trying to get him to be somebody you think he should be. It's not his job. His job is to be who he is. And too many times women do this, especially emotional eaters. Again, because we don't feel right and we're afraid of feeling bad. So we try to direct the show. We try to get everybody around us to act in certain ways so that we feel okay. And that is crazy making, and it'll drive people out of your life. Nobody wants to be controlled. People want to just be allowed to be. Let your partner be who they are. Obviously, if they're pulling shit and they're doing stuff that is not good and it's hurtful or abusive, that's not what I'm talking about. Of course, you need to do something about that. You need to leave, or you need to sit down some rules, go to therapy, whatever you need to do. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being a control freak. I'm talking about trying to tell everybody what their role is. Never letting people just be. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know an emotional eater who isn't a control freak, frankly. And I am a recovering control freak. So I certainly have had much time doing this. Having somebody else be a certain way, dress a certain way, laugh a certain way, talk a certain way so that I can feel comfortable. And that is, it's a prescription for disaster. It will kill any intimacy whatsoever. It'll cause resentment in the other person, and it'll cause them to not want to be around you. And then you're going to be paranoid that he's cheating on you, but you drove him away. So I'm here to say, if you want to have a different experience, if you want intimacy in your relationship, you have to look at yourself. You have to own these things I'm talking about. I'm going to go through them right now. The 12 telltale signs and symptoms of being afraid of intimacy is self-sabotage, projection of worthlessness onto the other person, being passive-aggressive or game playing, not communicating your needs, resentment, thinking the grass is greener somewhere else, infidelity, cheating, jealousy, being hypercritical, taking things personally and being defensive, rejection of the other person preemptively, and then being controlling. These are the 12 telltale signs that you have a fear of intimacy, that you're blocking intimacy with these habits, and it doesn't have to be that way. Okay, I'm calling these out so that you can start noticing these things. That's the first step to changing these things, is notice them. Okay, I hope you've written these things down. Super important. Spot them in your relationships. Watch yourself. Observe the way you are and start changing these things. Start trusting more. Start being more open in your communication. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Talk about your fear of vulnerability and talk about your fear of intimacy. Talk about being afraid you're going to be hurt. It's okay. Talk it out. Give your spouse some credit. They love you. They want to be there for you. Give it a try and see what happens. I hope this has been helpful. So much of our eating comes from being unhappy in our relationships. And sometimes relationships aren't right because they're based on our low sense of self-worth. And then we got to make changes. But oftentimes our unhappiness in relationships comes from us and how we're showing up. So I want you to take a good, strong look at that and determine where you can make changes and up-level the experience for both of you. Thanks so much. Please share this show with others. I think it's an important one and something we all need to be reminded of. Hey, please let me know if this show has touched you in any way. Please write to me, go to healyourhunger.com and shoot me an email. Either DM me on Facebook or Instagram. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much. See you on the next show.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.